Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de how I'd advise a specific family situation that I think is relatively regular, found in this case in a Facebook fire group where people sometimes come to vent about their financial frustrations and so on. I'm Puck here. Another day, just definitely chilling, except when I read a post like this one on the lovely Facebook fire group. This was posted within the last week, and now I'll read the direct post itself, okay? In quotes, new to the group and just don't know where to get started. I can read 100 books, but because the concept of investing, returns, bonds, etc. is over my head, I just don't absorb any of it. A brief synopsis. Husband and I are 42. We both work with combined salaries totally roughly $95K, and he gets $2,300 per month disability. When he's 65, he'll get another $2,700 per month from the military. We owe $329,000 on our 3-year-old home with 2.5% and $21K on a car with 2.9%. 8 years ago, I left the company to work for myself and rolled my 401K into Schwab. I haven't contributed since, sad face emoji. Anyway, we still have 3 kids at home, all in private school, and I live every day with nagging thoughts that we need to work smarter, not harder. We are exhausted, and the thought of working until 65 makes me want to vomit. Thank you very much for your kindness and help. End quote. Oh yeah, so much to unpack, and I think I can break it down quickly and give some actual actionable advice, right? And what I find most interesting about this post is just how, well, normal and reasonably middle class this sounds. So I think it'll make a fine example. Comment, like, and subscribe, and share, and all that social media nonsense if you want to support me, or whatever, because, you know, I'm rich enough for me, and we'll be great regardless. First point, I immediately need to adjust the very first sentence of what the poster said, right? Where she talks about how she can't just absorb many of the concepts or books that she's read. Okay, so what? Guess how many books I've read before hitting fire? A big fat 0. Okay, and since then, after I retired, I've read exactly 1 book, and that is The Intelligent Advisor as recommended by Warren Buffett. So it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me, okay? Go for the classics. There are tons of drivel out there. Reading and reading alone won't do much without accompanied action. And action is what this lady and her family needs, right? She said she can't absorb any of the investing fire concepts. Well, how about just do them? The actions to actually do are very, very simple. Nothing much to absorb at all. I will list it simply, okay? Spend less than what you make, to do as much less as you can possibly get away with, have an emergency fund of a year, and then invest all the rest. Ignore the papers, just keep investing into index funds. That's about it. I think that's pretty simple. So now, it's not a question of absorbing the concepts, but are you doing all of these things? I suspect currently the answer is no, right? The poster seems to think that she needs to understand all the whys of these actions before being taken first, and I'm here to say that's not really necessary whatsoever, okay? Most people don't understand how their own liver works, okay? But do understand, well, don't drink too much or you'll get alcohol poisoning, right? So just do the actual actions. It's not a requirement to understand the why part. You can get to that part later if you really want, but do the actions first, and most people's financial situations will absolutely improve. Okay. Second point, or suggestion, also very actionable, and that is move. This is based on how several things actually the poster says, right? For one thing, she says she's paying for 3 kids' private schools, so I'm guessing that's taking up a very large chunk of the poster's family's earnings. Private schools aren't cheap, and frankly not necessarily better, especially for the income level of not even 6 figures the poster's family's in. I mean, seriously, do you really want your kids to be the poorest kids in private school rather than just a regular kid at a public school? You see how weird of a situation you're putting your children in? So what I read is that they bought a house, but is unhappy with the public school of that region, therefore necessitating the paying of multiple, presumably, private schools. This is just an unnecessary financial strain. Move and possibly downsize to a smaller, acceptable house in a better public school district and hopefully cut your expenses by a significant amount. Oh, by the way, I was also curious why the poster mentioned that their home was 3 years old. Why is that relevant? Houses are meant to last like many decades, not in increments of a year or 2 or 3. Again, I feel like this indicates a complete lack of what is a reasonable investment in terms of housing. So what they went for is buying newish, and apparently at a crappy location. And that's exactly what households with children should not do. So please immediately move via fixer-upper, hopefully smaller and older home, and have your kids help fix it up, but in an area with a decent public school. This direction, if you take it, will cut expenses in multiple directions and instill a good work ethic in your children, okay? Now, last point. For a couple in their early 40s, posters, the original poster and spouse needs to, well, make more money, okay? $95K for dual income with kids, multiple kids? That's not enough, okay? I want to also focus on this sentence. The poster said, 8 years ago, I left the company to work for myself and rolled my 401k into Schwab, and I haven't contributed since. And then followed by a sad face. You know what I read? I read, she left the company and then stopped making any real money for 8 years. There's nothing wrong with working for yourself, okay? But that's not a disguise for simply working on a hobby and not contributing any more to the household, okay? Because I feel retirement investments should still be made no matter what you're making, like working yourself or otherwise, right? Now, it's entirely possible the poster is simply not making much of anything in her enterprise to do that, in which case my suggestion is get a boring regular job again. I'm sorry. It's just not a choice that you can afford when you have 3 kids that are currently higher cost than they need to be, right? With all that private school tuition, right? I have no idea what the partner does, but the 2 whole adults adds up only to $95K at over 40? I mean, over 40 is exactly the age group where most people are peaking at earning, and yet the average household also, by the way, has less than 3 kids. So this couple decides to have more than the average amount of kids and put them into private school while they don't really make, you know, higher than kind of a normal amount of money, right? So I have to suggest that their combined income really needs to be much higher. I would aim for double than what they're making right now, okay? So instead of 95K, you guys should be at like 200K if you want to have 3 children. At the end of the day, most people cannot change their circumstances quickly, right? So I'll say at the very least, a mental change can be made in my first actionable point. Just start investing. It doesn't really matter how much it is, right? Do that for 5 years and you can see the results for yourself, right? And maybe then the mental shift can occur naturally. So, you know, that whole absorbing the concept idea, right? At the very least, this poster realizes that she's on the same work grind that most people expect to be on, you know, probably lasting until the age of 65. And she realizes that if she does that, she will be very sad, right? And nobody should need to live like that. The good news is that there's plenty of actions to do. Make more, spend less, move to where both of these are possible. The advice is easy, the execution, the willingness to actually do so, that's what's hard, right? So to end it on a high note, I'm sure this lady can make all these adjustments, right? But she definitely, right now, just needs to start, okay? Let me know what you think of whether my advice is too harsh or I'm completely bonkers. Whatever, it's cool, I'm open to suggestions, okay? Cheers, I'll approach it.